How about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen Podcast.
Is Notre Dame really good like we thought they were? Or does Purdue just suck? I think that's going to be the question we all ask ourselves this week as the Irish give a thumping to the Purdue Boilermakers 66-7, the largest victory in the 88-game history of Notre Dame and Purdue. I'm Dylan, joined by Steve. Welcome to week 4 of college football. Steve, did you watch this one?
Did I watch it? Yes. Did I watch it live is another question, to which, dating back to last week's mental breakdown, I did let people know I was not going to be watching it live. The 18-year-olds in South Bend, Indiana did not earn 4 hours of my Saturday. So I went and played a round of golf, teed off at like 2:20 p.m. Eastern. And by the time that Riley Leonard was scampering into the end zone for his first touchdown, I was probably on like the 7th hole or something. So, hey man, I had a great day. I was completely blissfully unaware. I shot a really, really good round of golf. I have my club championship upcoming this coming Saturday, Sunday. So I'll be missing the live game again. I'll record it and watch it on playback again. But it was about as pleasant of a game day experience as I could have, being, I don't know how many hours are in a week, but let's call it 100 hours removed away from one of the biggest catastrophes in program history. So, it was a pleasant experience for me, playing golf, taking the day, and then watching it back on replay.
What'd you shoot?
So I actually only played 9 holes. I was going to play all 18, but I've had some soft tissue injuries recently where I didn't want to, in my shoulder, that I didn't want to exacerbate. So I shot 41 on 9 holes with 2 penalty strokes on a par 5 where I just couldn't figure it out. So if I had just made a par on that par 5, I would have shot probably 3 over par. And yeah, would have put me in contention.
Wow, that's pretty good, man. Speaking of injuries, though, Notre Dame suffered 3 injuries in this game, Steve. The first one being Jordan Botello, out for the rest of the year with an injury in a non-contact play. Super unfortunate because he was having a great start to the season and a great game, but he'll get medically redshirted, and I would anticipate him coming back next year. And then we had 2 injuries to the offensive line. Center Ashton Craig is out for the season with an injury, and right guard Billy Schrouth is out for at least a few weeks with an injury. Before we get into the game, Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Is that catastrophe, or are we going to survive?
More concerned about the offensive line. I guess in particular the center position. Like Ashton Craig he was kind of a young and up and comer. And it's not that, like, I think both at all 3 positions we're pretty deep, and guys are going to slot in and take over. I'm sure Pat Coogan is going to come in and play guard, and then so is Rocco Spindler. Rocco Spindler at guard and Pat Coogan probably at center is my guess.
Yeah, that's what they did during the game. So Coogan's going back to center, and Billy Schrouth's replacement will be Rocco Spindler. Here's the thing, though. I understand your point that it's the one that concerns you the most, but if there's anywhere on the offensive line we have depth, it's the interior. And both Rocco and Pat were starters all of last year. So I don't think it's too big of a loss. Obviously, it sucks that Ashton Craig was developing and is now going to, be prolonged in that. Like, he's going to have to recover, come back, and get to it next year. But I think the team's going to be fine. I think Pat Coogan is more than capable of doing the job. He was more of I think he was a guard last year with Rocco. But I think he'll be fine there, and I think Rocco will do great in the weeks that Billy is out. So I hear you. But I almost think we're kind of fine because, Jordan Botello injury sucks, but Boubacar Traore had a sack and a pick six last game. And that is a redshirt freshman. Let's not forget Junior Tui Halamaka that's also there. And then on the other side, there's Bryant Young. There's
Bryce Young.
Bryant Young's son, yes. So I think we're going to be doing quite well in terms of replace and reload, but obviously those are injuries you don't want to have to suffer this early into a season.
I absolutely agree. The only contention the first thing I wanted to say, and then I'll go back to the injuries, with Boubacar Traore's pick six, that should be technically a sack fumble, because I'm pretty sure that was Riley Mills that sacked him or got to the quarterback, Hudson Card, and that didn't look like an attempted pass. I think it just kind of was he got his hands on his hands. The ball kind of just moved around and it flew through the air into Traore's hands. But that's bullshit. That should be a sack fumble recovery touchdown. I'm riding for my boy Riley Mills there. I want him to get credit for it. He will in our hearts at the very least. Now going back to the injuries, exactly to your point, we're deep. We have tons of young talent, especially at the defensive end. We're good on the defensive side of the football. I'm not worried about that. Jordan Botello was really good coming into his own this year, but again, we got guys, we got dudes, especially with Marcus Freeman's recruiting, especially on defense. So we're fine. Exactly as you surmise, the interior of the offensive line is really good, and it's also really deep. These guys have experience. They're all good. My only fear is that I'm not concerned about these guys over the course of the remaining 10 games in the regular season. I think that we should be favored and should win the remaining 10 games. Knock on wood, right at this point, as we saw 2 weeks ago. But it's going to be those January games where I'm concerned. How is the interior of the offensive line going to hold up? How are those guys going to hold up, and the offensive line in general? So I think we're good for getting to January. From January beyond, that's when question marks start to enter.
That's fair. I mean, that's a discussion we're going to have too if January football is something that we might see at Notre Dame this year. But let's get into that football game. I wasn't happy. I didn't smile. And I'm not someone who's that negative or pessimistic about Notre Dame, but just with the way the Northern Illinois game went, to see us just utterly destroy Purdue, knowing that's what we should have done last week, just hurts, because this is a team that should have gone, I think, undefeated this year in the regular season. This is a team that should be in the playoff. This is a team that should have its perception changed, and it doesn't, right? The playoff is still possible, but you lost to NIU. You're never getting that one back. That is now a dark cloud hanging over our heads for the rest of time, that we've lost to yet another G5 team at home. And just, where was this effort last week at home, right? I would expect Purdue to be a better team than Northern Illinois. I know Purdue's near the bottom of the Big Ten, but I would have expected them to be a better opponent, a better challenge than NIU at home. So I'm just pissed off. Yes, they played great, and there was so much to like with this game we can get to. The running game was fantastic. Last week I said Coach Denbrock's coaching chops are going to be on display this season, because he's going to have to figure out the quarterback situation and the offense built around Riley Leonard if that's the quarterback. And I thought he called it a great game. I thought the offense looked really good. They used Leonard the way they really need to. And then, of course, defensively we looked great. The front was getting a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks. Really, really happy with the game overall, Steve, but very frustrated watching it as well.
Yeah. When I did watch everything back, it was like, hey, this is cool that statistically on the score sheet, on the scoreboard, all the things are going well. And if you just strictly looked at the box score of this game and the scoring summary, you would say Notre Dame's unbelievable. But then when you actually looked at the play-to-play and saw, one, how they played, there was definitely some misplays out there. And I think particularly at the quarterback position, there were some You got to find some guys downfield, and he is kind of predisposed to being a runner, and there's some upside to that. There's some escapability and some big play potential, but then there's also a downside where guys tend to think with their legs first, unfortunately. And again, that'll get us through until January, but does it get us beyond? I don't think it does. And then and then it just brings up the point. It's like, okay, our defense was ridiculous, and Hudson Card's I think a good quarterback, a decent quarterback. This is an air raid offense that we played against Purdue. So, and our defensive line completely bottled up the run. Not that Purdue's much of a running team, but and the the DB core just completely shut them down. Kennedy Urlacher, holy shit! Like, talk about a coming out party. Linebackers were phenomenal. And that long pass that we gave up against Purdue, that one was a freak one. Like, it snuck in between one defenseman and a ref, and another defender kind of like just couldn't get there. It was a freak play. Okay, freak plays happen. It is what it is. And we only gave up 16 points, but how the fuck were it made me more mad. Exactly to your point. Winning 66-7 was even more dissatisfactory. One, knowing that we had that domination in us all along, and that, you look at the statistics with Jeremiah Love, especially after, we looked at Jeremiah Love got one carry after that leaping touchdown run against NIU. He got one more carry from that point on. We had a quarterback who's a running quarterback that just would hand off every single time and refuse to hold on to pull the ball down on a read option and make a big play. And then we find out it's because his shoulder is hurt. It's like, okay, well, if his shoulder is hurt, why not put in Angeli? And Angeli, he took a couple of bad sacks in the Purdue game, but given the context and the circumstances, we're blowing them out, whatever, just take a sack, don't do anything stupid. And two, Angeli's pushing the ball downfield. He's making throws. He's making plays. He's getting guys on their heels instead of coming downhill at us. Totally different dimension. We went out. We got the receivers. You have plenty of guys on this roster that can throw the football, and I think that Riley Leonard could be pretty good too. There's a hole in my heart that will never be healed. That's what it feels like. And like you said, it's just a dark cloud. And even if we go 11-1, which I still think that there's a really good chance that we do, and I'll jump back to you to finish up the point here, but I at no point starting this season, all of August, there was zero fear that I had of any team in all of college football. If you told me that we would play a semifinal or a final matchup game against Georgia, Alabama, or Texas, or Ohio State, I would have said, okay, it's probably a pick 'em against any of those four teams. Notre Dame is definitely going to compete, and there's a really, really good chance we win, and there's a really good chance we win the national championship. I was not afraid of any of those teams. At this point, not certain that I want to be on the field with any of those four teams come January or beyond. So I don't know, man. It's hard to be happy after a 66-7 victory. That sucks.
Yeah, it goes to show you the damage I think Notre Dame fans have suffered after many years of this. I will say this: if Notre Dame does this again this week to Miami, Ohio, I will start to feel pretty good. If Notre Dame can start blowing out these teams, right? I don't expect 66-7, but if you start putting them away, if you host Louisville and beat them by 2 touchdowns, I'll start to feel good about this team's ability to get to the playoff. That's my concern. This team, I think, kind of has to go 11-1 to get in, which means you got to beat Louisville, you got to beat Georgia Tech. I mean, Florida State is fucking abysmal right now. They just lost to Memphis. They're 0-3 to start the year. But still, it's a tough game with at least some talented players in Florida State. And then you're going to have to go to the Coliseum and beat USC. So I don't. That's my focus right now. I'm not even worried about January. I just want to get there. But if we keep playing like this, I will start feeling better and better. And then I think we could start talking about those January games because I think the talent's here. I do think the talent's here. I think they just need to maximize it and get the most out of the quarterback position because defensively, I feel really strong about this team like you do. The run game has been there. The offensive line has more than held their own so far this season. I think receivers are doing a good job getting open. So I think it's just the quarterback. And if we can, some people pointed out, this is Riley Leonard's third game back from a serious injury, right? And he hasn't played football since like October of the year before. So it might just take him a little while to get back into the rhythm. I think Steve Angeli probably should be the guy right now, but I'm okay with the staff giving Leonard a short leash if they're going to play and execute that kind of offensive style. I thought they played a really good offensive game. And with different quarterbacks, right? Like Leonard, we saw a lot of getting guys open in space. Sure, they're short passes, but they're, the Jaden Thomas one where he double catches it, right? That goes for probably 20 or 25 yards off after the catch and run, using the legs to get first downs. But then with Angeli, you saw more passes or at least more of a willingness to pass down the field. So I think we got the potential. I know we can do it, but I'm not going to let myself buy in until I see this consistently. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say have to win by 4 touchdowns against Miami, Ohio. But what would really let me buy in, like genuine buy-in, is a 3-touchdown victory against Louisville at home. If we beat Louisville like, I don't know, 38-13, then I'll say, okay, like this, we're back on track. But obviously if we lose, the season's over. I tweeted this out from the podcast account the other day. Hey, Notre Dame, congratulations, you made the playoffs. You made the playoffs in week fucking 2 because every single game is a playoff game from here on out. Because if you lose, the season's over. But yeah, I mean, even if we beat Louisville like 21-17, I'll still tell you like, no, we're going to get cooked in the playoffs, or USC is going to knock us off at the end of the year. Like I still won't be confident. So yeah, like beat the living shit out of Miami, Ohio, and then handle Louisville, like do a really good job of taking them out, and then I'll be all the way back. But until then, I'm like sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Freeman and the team has got to earn us back. We'll always support them. We'll always cheer for them. We're going to go to the games and stuff. But the belief that we had in this team, I think they need to prove to us that they deserve it. So we'll see as the season goes along. But a lot can happen, man. Like last season, you lose to Louisville, things look ugly, and then 2 weeks later you just dismantle an undefeated USC team, right? A lot can happen, and we know with this Freeman program that they are up for big games. They are up for them, right? They were up for Texas A&M. Texas A&M beat Florida quite convincingly this week. Mm-hmm. So Texas A&M's a decent team. Sorry, what's that, Steve?
With a backup QB, Connor Wegman sat.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So backup QB, they handle Florida. That's a game we got up for. It's a game we played. It's a game we earned to win. We've seen them last year, USC. Okay, yeah, the Ohio State game doesn't go our way, but that team was more than ready and should have won the game. So we know this team's capable of it, but I think it's fair to say they got to earn it back from us just because it's an embarrassing loss. That's going to be hung over our head. Even if Northern Illinois wins the MAC, you should never lose to them. You should just never lose to them ever. So, sorry if we're just a little down on it, but I got a feeling the audience right now feels kind of the same way. I think a lot of us feel pretty beaten down with this. Yes, we're excited that the team looks better, but I can't watch that 66-7 win and think, hell yeah, we're back. This team hasn't gone anywhere. We need to see it more, and I think next week against Louisville, not to look past Miami, but I think Louisville will be a first real test for us this year.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
I mean, aside from the A&M game, but I mean, like, first test post this loss here. I think that's what we're coming up to. Let's talk about, just pick one horseman of the game each. I'll give you the first go. I feel like we might take the same guy, so I have a backup.
Yeah. Geez, you put me on the spot, but I'm just gonna go with Kennedy Urlacher. It was all mop up. It was complete mop up work. Game was steadily in hand. That's why you have a true freshman out there. But kid was playing downhill, blowing up plays, got a hat on a helmet, and forced an incompletion that, if the guy possessed it for like a tenth of a second more, could have been a fumble. I think he's got a bright future. Everyone else played good. Like we know everyone played great. Running backs, even wide receivers when they had an opportunity. We had all four quarterbacks enter the game. Offensive line played well. They protected. Defensive line was fantastic. But Kennedy Urlacher, congratulations. You're a horseman.
That's a good point. And you know what, Steve? That's a reason why you have to blow these teams out, because it gets those guys the opportunity to play on the field. Kennedy Urlacher got national media attention for his performance. That doesn't happen if you're not up 66-7 to Purdue this week. It might come out throughout the year, but it doesn't come out this week. And not even Urlacher, man. Just like seeing Chris Tarrick on the offensive line when Kenny Minchie runs in for the final touchdown. Those are reps that are going to do so much more for the development of these players than they'll get in practice. And that's why it's important to blow teams out so they can get on the field, right? That's what we love about this Freeman team, is it's a lot of the young guys stepping up. And if you can get some of the true freshmen and some of the redshirt freshmen kind of getting those reps, getting some game time, that's going to help the team long term. And that's why I think it's so important to start blowing out teams again. And it's something we struggled with even under Kelly, right? We never lost those games, but we always played those games close. Like Ball State was like a 19-17 type game. Like you got to be able to blow these teams out for that reason. And I think that's a great pick, Steve. I'll go with Jeremiah Love. He was averaging like 7 yards per carry. He's so explosive. I mean, Ricky Waters is such a great comparison. I know I keep saying that, but just what he can offer, the jet sweep from the backfield in the slot, there's so much there. And he's got that ability to put his foot down and just burst. It's not that like Jeremiah Love is north-south the fastest guy in college football. It's the burst that really impresses me and the way he runs. He runs with so much strength. And I thought the way he played last week was really, really telling. And I think my play of the game is shout out Jadarian Price. How about that 40, 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown run at the end of the half when we're just trying to run out the clock, and he gets free on the quarter and takes it to the house. So the running game's going, and I think that's one of the things with Mike Denbrock's offense. And if you're worried about the quarterback, whether with his legs or with his arm, that's going to open up the running game for us, and we got so much potential there.
Yeah, and more to the point, like you got two absolute stallions in the backfield and a really, really effective running quarterback. I don't know if any offensive coordinator in South Bend, Indiana, over the past decade or so has ever heard of this thing called play action. It's when you fake a handoff. You don't actually hand it off, but you fake it. All the guys on defense think that you're running the ball, so they come downhill, and then you actually don't hand it off. You throw it over their heads to a wide open receiver for big chunk plays and touchdowns. So I'm happy to teach a coaching clinic anytime they want to fly me out to South Bend. Happy to get there, teach them the basics of the game. We can even work on a jet sweep or an outside zone run or a blitz, or just these basic things in football that we, if they need me there, I'd be happy to do it. But yeah, man, great running backs, great running game. They might want to just consider the play action pass at some point. And exactly to your point, to circle back really quickly, and then we can kind of move on from everything. That's why Alabama was Alabama for so long as well. Like Nick Saban was notoriously ruthless. He would absolutely destroy teams, and then he would have his true freshmen and sophomores in the game in the second half getting unbelievably invaluable experience. So that way, by the time their number was called, whether it was via injury or whether it was just, the guys graduating ahead of them or going to the draft. They weren't rebuilding ever. They were just reloading. And it's because they had a ton of experience, even for guys that were really young on the roster. So yes, more blowouts, be ruthless, win every game by 70 if you can, and don't show any fucking mercy, Marcus.
Before we move on, two things I wanted to mention. Going back to Kennedy Urlacher for a second. This was a guy that was kind of lowly recruited and was often overlooked in the recruiting class. And he is one of the guys who's making an impact first in their freshman seasons. Kingston Viliamu-Asa has been by far the number one guy for me as freshman, just because he's playing so much. Bryce Young's looked really good. We've seen a little bit of both running backs. Keedron Young got some game time. Aeneas Williams. But I just shout out to Urlacher, man. And it happens all the time, right? Benjamin Morrison was a low 4-star guy, and as a true freshman, one of the best corners in America. We've talked about recruiting rankings. They kind of matter in the sense that you can predict generally like the amount of wins you can get based off of the recruiting classes you bring in and where they rank. Like there's a relationship there, but individual rankings don't matter. They really don't. And they're proven time and time again. And I think Kennedy Urlacher, man, just the amount of speed he had, it was like, how is that guy a 3-star? So I just wanted to give him a shout out. I know you gave him love with Horseman of the Game, but really deserved it. And another guy I wanted to shout out, how did Steve Angeli play, man? I thought he looked great. Like passing the ball, he had a great game passing, like high percentage, 2 touchdowns, to start the half with Cooper Flanagan, and then also with Kevin Bauman, tight end, very senior leadership player there. And then just like that throw to Jaden Harrison of all people, right? Probably the number 6 wide receiver on the current 6 rotation that we're using. Hits him over the middle, over the shoulder, perfectly where the defender can't get it. Just lovely stuff, Steve. I really enjoyed what I saw from Angeli. Yeah,
and obviously Riley Leonard already has a shoulder issue right now with a semi-torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder, his left shoulder, which I guess had affected his ability to run the ball against NIU. He bounced back pretty well in this game, and Leonard played well. So props to him. But yeah, there just seems to be a bit of a different element with Angeli in the game. So Leonard, while you're I hope he dominates.
Sorry, Steve. He took those sacks, but something I like, it's been itching at me too. Only one of those sacks was bad. I think the one where he held on way too long and got sacked for 10 yards, that was rough. But the other 2, they're like RPOs where he gets tackled near the line of scrimmage, or he's waiting for someone to get open. It just doesn't happen. He doesn't lose many yards. And also, he ran for like 25 yards on a keeper, like a 2nd and 20, to pick up the first down. So yeah, it's not perfect, but I really liked what I saw from Angeli. I thought he looked really sharp, and people will say, look, it's mop-up duty. Oregon State was against depleted starters, and all that's true. But Riley Leonard hasn't proven he can do that against NIU. Angeli has only ever performed and done what we've asked him to when given the opportunity. He won the spring game as a true freshman with his legs. He's just a baller, right? He went out, he absolutely dominated Oregon State. Yes, they were depleted, but he did his job, and he decimated Purdue with his, in his quarter of play. So I don't know, man. I understand people's hesitations towards Angeli. Maybe he's not the dude, but he's proven everything that he needs to prove, I think, to earn that opportunity. So when it comes, I'm comfortable with Steve Angeli at quarterback, and I don't know how many other fans are.
I am too. I think of Angeli as a taller Ian Book. Right, because Ian Book was 6 foot, and Angeli, I think, is 6'2" or 6'3". So he has, because of his height, he has a bit of better vision. He's got a good arm. He has some escapability. Like, he was able to run exactly to your point. Is he going to be Cam Newton or Tim Tebow or Johnny Manziel, running the ball? No, he's not that sort of dual threat, but he has enough escapability. But man, he throws a pretty ball. And I think he has a knack for finding open guys or throwing guys open. So and he's exactly to your point. Everything that's ever been asked of him at Notre Dame, he's always stepped up and risen to the occasion. So if Riley Leonard's the starter going forward, I genuinely hope he rushes for 100 yards and throws for 300 yards and has combined total 6 touchdowns in every single game moving forward. I want Riley Leonard to be super duper successful. I want him to be that fucking dude that was advertised. In the event that he's not, listen, man, Jalen Hurts was pulled in the national championship game for Tua Tagovailoa. Again, that's the mark of a great coach. You find the fucking guy that's going to be able to step up when the time comes. And that, even if that's in the second half of a national championship game, you make bold decisions. So if that needs to happen, it needs to happen.
I mean, yeah, that's why Nick Saban's the greatest, right? I don't think Angeli's really. I think he's more mobile than people give him credit for, but he's not a super mobile guy. I see a little bit of Jack Cohn. I think he's moves better than Jack Cohn. I think we haven't seen enough, but I would say Jack Cohn is probably a better passer against, FBS level teams. That's just because we haven't seen Angeli play top competition yet. But I see Jack Cohn's structure there, which I'm okay with because that was a good team and they ran a half decent offense. And I think Denbrock will be able to bring out more of that. So I'm with you there, Steve. I thought Angeli played great. I thought Minchie looked good. I thought Carr looked good in his handoffs. And to be fair, Riley Leonard did play well. Like he went 11 for 16, I think. Made some passes when he needed to. Did well. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. So I don't want to scapegoat Riley Leonard, even though I thought last week was a huge problem. He was a big problem last week. But if he plays better, I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for him to keep being the starter if he performs at such a level. But I'm comfortable at least with Angeli being the backup, and I think that's something. Obviously we didn't want Leonard to be this poor, but I think at least solidifying that backup spot with someone you're comfortable with is kind of a positive takeaway this season.
Yep, I'm comfortable with him being the backup. I'm comfortable with him taking over as a starter. I'm comfortable with however it plays out. Again. This is years worth of recruiting and development, and I think up and down both sides of the football, we are good. We are in a great spot. It's our season to lose, and at this point, talent's on the roster, coordinators are there. A great coach gets us to 11-1. And I think that Marcus Freeman is a great coach, but this is his time to be that guy. And I have all the belief in him in the world. Like I said,
I love it. Steve.
Just wrapping it up. Like I said, I think we're favored for the regular season. I think we have a great coach that can get us there. We'll see what happens January and beyond. But we're good. We'll see if we're great.
That's a good way to say it. Also, guys, keep an eye on Cooper Flanagan. He's having a quietly nice season as a breakout player. I think he's a sophomore. Obviously we expect Mitch Evans to be a big guy in the tight end room. But just the way Cooper Flanagan was able to make a niche for himself last year as a blocker, and he's getting more involved in the passing game. He obviously caught the touchdown by Steve Angeli last week. Just keep an eye on that, man. TEU, that's a real thing, and I think he could be the next one in a long line of great tight ends. But Steve, if you have anything else to say about Purdue, let's get it in now before we move on to the college football landscape as a whole.
Yeah, fuck that drum.
I love it. We play Purdue a few more times the rest of this decade, so we'll get plenty of chances to do that more and more. So the Shillelagh Trophy stays home with the Fighting Irish. They beat NC. But let's move on to the college football world as a whole, Steve. It was a weird week for college football. Anything caught your eye on the out of town scoreboard?
K-State is real. I was right. I think that they're going to be a real problem coming out of the Big 12. just going back over the scoreboard quickly. I apologize for the quick delay. Florida State is just hilariously booty cheeks. Michigan is going to lose at least 4 games.
They barely beat Arkansas State, for context, 28-18 at home.
Yeah.
Another big game, Steve, I just want to get your opinion on it. Did you catch anything to do with Alabama and Wisconsin?
I didn't see any Bama and Wisconsin, no, but I saw it was Bama won convincingly, right?
Yeah, although, to be fair, Wisconsin hung them in there for quite a while, and then Alabama just kind of blew away with it in the second half. But I don't know what Luke Fickell is building at Wisconsin. Obviously, you got to give him time, but I'm not sure. That was a little bit of a head scratcher. Another one, Steve, did you catch the LSU South Carolina game at all?
I did, just because, at my golf club, as I was pulling up after my rounds, that's obviously I'm down here in Charleston, South Carolina, so that's all over the TVs here. People are losing their shit. So yeah, that was
Kelly might have been out of a job if they don't win that game.
Yeah, that was brutal. But speaking of a tight one with ridiculous calls also and massive implications, Georgia wins by 1 point, 13-12 on the road at Kentucky. Kentucky had a pick six in that game that was called back due to a phantom penalty that I don't know. I just didn't see it. So, it would have only put Kentucky up 10-0 at that point. But in a game that, as it turned out, was a 1 point game, like that could have been the deciding factor. And you don't know how the game flow goes from that point. Maybe Carson Beck comes back and is an absolute baller, but Beck did not play great on the road, right? And it showed that Georgia is in fact fallible. So if we were 3-0 right now and we had basically back-to-back performances that looked like this past week against Purdue, then I would have told you, okay, Notre Dame solidly a top 4 team in the country, and I'm truly not afraid of anyone. I would have been kind of preeminently dancing on Georgia's grave. Once again, I can't get myself too high.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a weird one with the way they dominated Clemson, for them to kind of have a stinker against Kentucky. I know in our top 25 we're going to be releasing here soon, we all have Texas number 1 this week. I think that's fair. I think Texas has earned it. But I don't think Georgia is. I think this was just one stinker. I'm happy to allow teams a game like that. I'm not too bothered by it. I think Georgia will be fine. But it was definitely a shock to me. How about another one, Steve? Boston College and Missouri. Boston College was up in this game. Missouri ended up taking a big lead, and then Boston College made it really close. They lose 21-27, but they're on the road at the number 16 in the country. What are your thoughts on that? Is BC for real?
I would love for them to be. It's if they, the Matt Ryan years, man, Boston College, like those were fun games. Like it's fun. Boston College is good. I love Boston as a city. Like, if there's an opportunity to grow the game of college football in that city, that's a net positive in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, that Bill O'Brien is the guy there and seems to be off to a hot start. So, good on the Eagles for kind of turning things around. It's been a weird season. There's been a lot of upsets, but also a lot of teams who almost get upset. Like Oregon's had some really questionable ones, although they beat their in-state rival this week handedly. A lot of interesting stuff going on. Also, Steve, just some mild realignment news that broke today. The American Athletic Conference, the AAC, is in talks to add Air Force, which would give them Air Force, Army, and Navy for the first time. All 3 service academies would be in the same conference, and the Commander-in-Chief's trophy would be played for as a conference trophy. What do you think of that?
That would be sick. That would be great. I think that they all belong together, and they should all be protected games that they all play each other each season. Like that should be a thing. And then additional expansion news or conference realignment news. Looks like the Pac-12 is getting its mojo back.
Yes, sir. For those who may have missed that, Oregon State and Washington State, the remaining members of the Pac-12, they got a huge settlement from the other Pac-12 members who left them, so they have a lot of money to play with, and they're trying to rebuild the conference. So they take 4 schools out of the Mountain West. Boise State, which is one who has been one of the top G5 programs for 20 years now. San Diego State, that's a no-brainer for what the Pac-12 is looking for. Fresno State, as well as Colorado State. UNLV was not added yet because they are tied with Nevada, so there's a little bit of complications there. I think they would like to add them. And the idea is they're going to look to the AAC as potential because they have to get to at least 8 teams to still be a conference, and they have until June to kind of figure that out. So I think Memphis and Tulane are the teams that are going to be going there. I just saw something reported that Memphis is deep in talks on joining the Pac-12, and Tulane is my favorite. They're an absolute program that I love. I think they're a great ACC expansion target. You're talking about a private elite school in New Orleans, Louisiana, with a great football history. Used to be an SEC school. So I think that's what's going to happen there. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the G5 putting the better programs together, just so they can be more competitive with the Power 5. I don't know about you, but that's actually some realignment I don't mind too much.
I agree, but I don't know, man. I'm again, consider me a traditionalist. I typically am a traditionalist in almost every aspect. I would like for the Pacific 12 Conference to at least encompass most, if not all, of their schools on the Pacific Coast. So I don't want to see Memphis or Tulane go. If anything, I would like to see them add Nevada, UNLV, maybe Wyoming if you want to pick them off, and then and then Hawaii, right? Like that would be fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
it's television that drives this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about money. That's what we've learned, sadly, is that the world is just all about money. So it sucks. It's the new world that we live in. The world that we all grew up in is dead and gone. And yeah, sorry to be a Debbie Downer. Let's move on to the next topic before.
That's okay. Thanks, Texas. Thanks for ruining college football. Yeah, no, I thought that'd be a nice little update there because that's been going on in the news. But yeah, I think that's it. Let's get into our week 4 game predictions. This is a pretty good week, Steve. So I'll let you pull up your bookies because we'll pick the spreads live, but we do know which games we're picking. So I'll toss it over to you, and if you're listening at home, please feel free to tweet at us your picks. We'll put out a graphic this week. We've been keeping track of it. In fact, Steve, before you get to that, the records have gotten close. So P-Wagon and I both went 6-0 last week. You went 4-2. So now all of us are 12-6 on the year straight up. And you and P-Wagon are 11-7 against the spread, and I'm 10-8 against the spread. So it's really neck and neck here heading into week 4. And I love this. It keeps me engaged with the college football world at large.
I agree. And I'm really, really fucking mad that South Carolina doesn't have legal betting, and I have no way to start getting like my DraftKings app. Like I don't want to put a lot of money down on it. If you're gonna gamble responsibly. Only what you can afford to lose, always. But if couple of weeks, man, where I could have thrown a $10 parlay on a couple of these, and I'd be up some units because and for all of us, I think all of us are pretty much hitting our money. Like we're all collectively.
We're 12-6 right now, money line, man. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good record for a gambler to have.
Speaking of cooking, speaking of money line, here's a good one. Nebraska is hosting Illinois. Both teams are 3-0. Nebraska ranked 22, Illinois ranked 24, respectively. This is going to be Friday night on Fox, and Nebraska is currently favored by 8.5 points. Illinois, money line, is plus 270, interestingly enough. Dylan, who do you got?
That's a great one, Steve. I might even watch this game. There's something about 10 programs that just, I don't know, excite me this week because I think Illinois is super underrated. I'm taking Nebraska, okay? but I'm taking Illinois to cover. I think 8.5 is way too big. But Nebraska looks legit. Dylan Raiola looks legit. I think Nebraska's schedule will make them have a better record than they actually are good a football team. But I've been clamoring for Nebraska to get back to the top of college football with the rest of us where they belong. So I'm happy to see the Cornhuskers win here. But Illinois to cover, Nebraska to win.
Every word that you just said is basically copy and pasted from my brain. Or like from the taking Nebraska but taking Illinois to cover. Yes, I agree. Then wanting, Nebraska's schedule being favorable for them to be 10-2 this season, I think is pretty reasonable. And then also wanting Nebraska to be quote unquote back in kind of the grand scheme of college football. I endorse everything that you just said, 100% wholesale, straight across the board. Next up, we have. I'm going to save those two for last. So let's go with Utah.
Fair.
Yeah, let's go with Utah at Oklahoma State. This one is going to be on Fox at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Utah, the number 12 ranked team, on the road at the number 14 ranked team, Oklahoma State. Both teams are 3-0. Cam Rising did sustain an injury this past week. However, he is expected to start. I thought that I saw something that Cam Rising was going to be lost for like 8 weeks or something like that. But apparently he's playing through it. So do note that there is a notable injury for the Utah quarterback, but he is still playing. Utah is currently favored by 2 points on the road.
So Utah's the favorite. Okay. Steve, I don't care if Cam Rising is playing or not. Utah is going to win this football game. Time and time again, they've proven they have an ability to win with just the culture and their scheme there. They've lost Cam Rising at other parts of the season before. That's not new. OK State, I think, is a little bit of a fraud. I think they're probably a top 25 team, but I did not think they looked good against Arkansas. They got really lucky to win that game, as did Kansas State and Tulane. Tulane kind of looked like they deserved that one, but K-State has earned my trust with last week's performance. The reason I'm talking about that is because the Big 12 has kind of been predicted this year to be either a Utah or an Oklahoma State showdown, with possibility of Kansas State being in there. And this game was circled preseason as one of the biggest games for the conference this year. So I think this is going to be a good one. Utah's going on the road. I don't care. Utah's going to win. I'll take them to cover.
Fair enough. And at the beginning of the season, I took Utah to win out their entire schedule and go 12-0 undefeated. And I agree. And their backup quarterback did play pretty decent last year in the face of Cam Rising's injuries. I don't know if it's still the same backup quarterback just because of the transfer. But exactly to your point, Utah has been a program that has been very, very solidly a top 15 team for at least like 7-8 years now, and even dating back to kind of the Urban Meyer years, right? So I like Utah as a program. I expect them to win, and I guess that means that I'll take them to cover too with that 2-point favorability. So brave of me. Another big one, huge, in the SEC, Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. We have the University of Tennessee, 3-0, going on the road to Norman. They are playing the Oklahoma Sooners, also 3-0. Tennessee is ranked number 6. Oklahoma is ranked number 15. Tennessee is currently favored by a touchdown.
That's a close one. Tennessee has looked like maybe the most impressive team in college football so far, just with the way they've dominated their very inferior opponents. I've been higher on Oklahoma this year than most have. Even in my ballot, I have Oklahoma ranked, I think, 12. This is a tough one, Steve. I could see this going either way. So I'm going to say Oklahoma covers. I'll take them to cover 7, but I'm going to lean the Tennessee Vols straight up, but I don't feel great about either of those picks.
Fair enough. I'm just going. I actually expect Tennessee to win and win big. I would take Tennessee minus 10.5 in this game. I think they win by at least 2 scores. Nico Iamaleava is a very legitimate quarterback. I think arguably the best in the entire country. So Tennessee to win.
Fair,
and then,
man. I'm with you, but would you be surprised if Oklahoma won?
Personally, yeah, I'm lower on Oklahoma this year than you are. I know you're higher on them. I genuinely think Oklahoma is probably going 8-4, possibly 7-5.
Okay, fair enough. That should be a good game, at least for the environment. I think that's Oklahoma's first SEC game, and it's a pretty big one. So Norman should be bumping.
Agreed. We have a fun one. A team that a lot of people did not expect to be good versus a team that a lot of people expected to be good. And the complete inverse has happened in both scenarios. Cal is undefeated. They are 3-0, and they are on the road against an absolute dumpster fire of a program right now down in Tallahassee. The Florida State Seminoles are 0-3 after dropping yet another embarrassing loss to Memphis, right?
Yes.
Yeah. DJU, poor guy. I think Benjamin Morrison broke that guy fucking permanently. He's cooked. At this point, they're 0-3. Why not start the true freshman, 5-star phenom Luke Kermanamarak, or whatever the fuck his name is? I'll never learn it, and I don't care. But nevertheless, Florida State is actually favored in this game, -2 points at home. Cal on the money line is +105.
So, Steve, I got to correct you. Florida State is not 0-3. They're 0-3. I don't know what's going on, man. Also, shout out to Cal. They beat Auburn last week. Really love that. I really love that from Cal. ACC member Cal. The Atlantic Athletic Conference member Cal Berkeley. Okay, Steve, we're tied so far. We've picked everything basically in sync straight up. I don't know if we're going to differ here or not, but I think, by God, the Cal Bears are going to win this game and cover a 2-point spread.
I'm really tempted to take it. I really am. I think that Florida State is basically, they have to have shame, right? Like you gotta have shame at a certain point in your life. They have to show up. This game is at home. I mean, I think somebody in the crowd might set off a suicide vest if they lose this game at this point. Like they are down bad in Tallahassee. So I'm gonna. That's probably going to get us censored. I don't care. I am going to take Florida State reluctantly. I would love to see them lose. It would be hysterical. But for the sake of gaming out this, I think I'm going to go with the Seminole to win and cover.
That's fair. It's hard to see Florida State going 0-4, but, man, they have not looked good. And Cal, I don't know, man. I kind of like the way Cal football's looking. Have they surprised you this year?
Vehemently, yeah. I thought they were maybe a 4 or 5 win program. So the fact that they are 3-0, and there's a really good chance that they come out 4-0 to start this season. It's a really cool storyline, because they've always kind of felt like a little brother and kind of down and out program, especially the last 20, 25 years. But they're getting feisty.
Man, they beat Auburn in Auburn. Like they went down south and beat them 21-14. And then they hosted SDSU, who's a great football program, and they handled their business. I like Cal, man. I'm feeling good about this. I like Cal.
Yeah. Imagine being so fucking dumb that you would commit to Auburn. I'm not going there. Okay. So, up next, we have the final game that we are picking. It's
oh yeah, we need to give this a proper introduction.
I'll let you go, but I was saying this is basically Hitler versus Stalin. But
well, I call it the SCUM Bowl. SCUM, absolute scum. Our two biggest rivals, the USC Trojans, are going to Ann Arbor to play the Michigan Wolverines. I hate this, but I've had it circled for a while. I'm very excited for this game. Obviously, two blue bloods, two rivals of ours. And if you are listening to this, get on Twitter. Go to our account at Horseman Pod. We have a poll there. We are asking Notre Dame fans who they are voting for in this one. We asked the same question when USC played LSU, and it was about 70% of Notre Dame fans preferred USC. So please get there and make your voices heard between these two rivals. I'd love to hear it. And Steve, tell us the line, and what are your thoughts on this game?
This game is in Ann Arbor. Number 18, 2-1 Michigan Wolverines are hosting the number 11, 2-0 USC Trojans. Currently, as it stands, let me just make sure that number is correct. Yeah, so currently, USC is favored by 5.5 points in this game. And this game is at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday on CBS.
Man, that's flipped because Michigan was 8.5 or 9.5 point favorites in the offseason for this game. And just in the matter of 3 weeks, the line has swung to USC 5.5. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Michigan's quarterback threw 3 interceptions this past week against Arkansas State in what was it, like a 12-point victory at home. So, like,
yeah,
he has not looked very good at all.
So if you remember, I said USC might be good this year. I feel like I was on an island, but I said do not be surprised if USC beats LSU and has a half-decent season. I think people are a little too much on the USC train. I feel like because they played well against LSU, they might be getting a lot of love, whereas maybe LSU just isn't that good, as evidenced by them barely beating South Carolina. But I also I think Michigan's worse than I thought they would be. I thought maybe they would have a better offense than what they're currently operating with. And I thought the defense would look a little better. Not that they've been horrible. It's just the way Michigan's defense has been the last few years, I would have expected more from them. So I could see this going either way, right? The Big House is not an easy place to play. They're going to do, I think, a maize and blue checkered thing. USC has still got questions. Michigan's got questions. 5.5 isn't bad. I thought it was higher. So, Steve, I'm going to take the Southern California Trojans. I will also be cheering for them. I will sing their goddamn fight song if that's what it takes for them to win. But I will take them to cover. I think this could be a close game, and I would not be surprised if Michigan wins.
Fair, totally fair. I think that Michigan is a dumpster fire waiting to happen. But I do see I'm going to take USC to win. I will be rooting for them right alongside you. As much as that pains me, I can't stand Michigan that much. I really hate USC as well, though. Like, I hate California. I hate Los Angeles. I hate USC. But I really, really hate Michigan. USC's defense has been improved. Michigan's offense is an absolute atrocity. But this seems like kind of a get-right game. At least head coach Sharon Moore is going to have his guys hopefully, or not hopefully, prospectively get up for it. So I will take USC to win, but I'll take this to be closer than that 5.5 point spread. So Michigan to cover.
That's fair. I like that. That's a pretty good week. I think we're in agreement for most things. But that will jinx. Let us know at Horseman Pod who you're cheering for this week, USC or Michigan. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. The early returns on the poll is close to 90% for USC. Look, we just hate Michigan. But I want to hear your opinion either way. I got mine that I'll be tweeting out tomorrow. Steve, any last thoughts before we kind of head on to Miami of Ohio?
None at all.
I love it. All right, so we're playing the Miami of Ohio Redhawks this week. Great school, not a great football program, but I am afraid of playing MAC teams or wherever they are at home. They scare me. I'm a little scared for this game. I just because of how Notre Dame played against Northern Illinois. I can't tell you. I can't say that I know much about Miami. So, do you have any kind of extra research there or insight onto what the Red Hawks bring to this game?
As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Ben Roethlisberger went there. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Sounds good. Do we know their record of last year?
Let me check. Fire up the machine, the sound effects music.
So they're a Mid-American. They're not in. So yeah, they are a MAC team. And then they're 0-2 this year. They lost to Cincinnati by 11. You kind of expect that. And they lost a one-score game to Northwestern. So those are two Power 4 schools that they hung in there with at least, but those are two of the worst Power 4 schools. Does that make it?
Yeah, they did go 11-3 last year. They won the MAC East. I'm not sure if they won the MAC championship, but they did come out of the East to play in the championship game against Toledo. So, yeah, I mean, they were a pretty decent team last year. It's a team from Ohio. Ohio in general is like kind of the heart of football country, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they have some really good linebackers and some really good offensive linemen and maybe a decent tight end. That's gonna again, that's just pure conjecture. I really don't know too much about them.
First class research here at the Four Horsemen podcast.
Listen,
look,
born over here. I don't have as much time these days.
No, that's okay. Listen, nobody, I think, expects us to be doing thorough previews for MAC teams, right? There are other channels that can do that. We'll do it for the big games. We'll get guests on. But listen, when it's Miami of Ohio, we're here more to just talk shit about Notre Dame than anything. Anything in this game you need to see, Steve?
The ability to push the ball downfield, and especially on broken plays or on RPOs where you're rolling the pocket, keeping the eyes downfield from the quarterback, making throws, making the attempt to get the ball, and if you are going to throw deep, keep it down the sideline, please. The defense, they regained all of my trust this past week against Purdue. So defense, just keep being you. You're perfect. Love you. Al Golden all the way. Offense, I mean, we at this point we are absolutely a run-first football team, and we should continue to be. We're going to be great on the ground, pound the rock. But again, the opportunity now to get in the reps, to get in the muscle memory, to get the confidence to know that you can do it, to make throws downfield, to test limits, to make, for guys to run complex routes and scheme themselves open. This is an opportunity to do it now. So that way in 2 weeks from now, when Louisville comes to town, Louisville will be legit. Like that's not something that we should overlook. And I'm a little bit overlooking this Miami, Ohio team, which at this point I shouldn't do, because if we lose this game, we have to join the MAC as a conference. I'm sorry.
That's the last conference you want to join. We'll never win it.
Yeah, exactly. So, just push the ball, take some chances. Obviously, run the ball and dominate, but don't, use play action for the love of God and just scheme some guys open. Prove to the fans that it can be done.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Steve. For me, there's one thing I need to see and there's one thing I'd like to see, okay? What I need to see is a blowout. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If this is not a blowout, we have failed and we got to go back to the drawing board. What I would like to see is a passing game that is beyond 10 yards. I want to see the deep ball. I want to see improvement in that aspect. The wide receivers are getting open, man. They are open. That doesn't mean go for it right away. Like, if you need your blowout, if you need like a nice 2-3 score lead before you start trying to flesh out the passing game, fine. I just want to win first and foremost. But once you have the game comfortably in hand, I need to see, or I would like to see, that passing game getting more rhythm, and just I need to see more from Riley on that front. Hopefully we see a lot of the kids again. You're allowed 4 free games of play before you lose your eligibility. So if you play 4 games or less, you can be redshirted. This should be one of those games, right? We saw a lot of them last week against Purdue. Northern Illinois should have been one of them. So Miami of Ohio should be one. So I need a blowout. I want to see the passing game get better. Is that fair?
Totally fair and reasonable expectation. Like, come on, boys. They do have that dog in them. Every single guy on the roster is exactly capable of everything you just said. Riley Leonard did win a deep passing competition in the offseason. He can do it. Like, we can do this. So just stop pussyfooting around and just get it done.
Agreed, man. Agreed. Shall we wrap this up with the score prediction, Steve?
Reluctantly, yeah.
I've got mine written down, so let's see if this gets spooky again.
Okay.
By the way, you took Purdue last week. I'm not going to let that one down.
Deservedly so. Listen, I was a broken man. Okay. You cut me some slack. All right, Dylan. Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to win this game 38-6.
My God. Steve, I've got it 38-10 Notre Dame.
I was going to go 45-10, but I was like, ooh, 40s is feeling a little, I don't know. So I'm trying to estimate them.
I feel like most of our score predictions over the last 3 seasons have either had the same number in it for one of the 2 teams or has had the same margin. Like, it's eerie how we keep doing this.
We know ball, except against NIU.
We know ball. Yeah, we don't know anything about that. But great stuff this week, Steve. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Great for you to be a part of this season. I'm loving it. I'm loving doing the prediction game. I'm loving the top 25. I'm loving watching college football again. Hopefully Notre Dame can continue to give me a reason to. That's a big one.
Hell yeah, brother. Nothing else from my end. I think we covered it all. Let's all be cautiously optimistic as fans and hope that the 18 to 22-year-olds don't break our hearts again.
Agreed. That's right. Okay, so give us a follow at Horseman Pod on Twitter, Instagram. Rate, review, 5 stars. We greatly appreciate it. And make sure to vote in that poll, USC or Michigan. Who are you cheering for? And you cannot say the Meteor. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Go Trojans. Like, don't feel good saying that. And most importantly, go Irish.
Go Irish.